part 2 today, with our continued conversation with Dr. Maria Sophocles, we explore the other side of perimenopause and the bedroom gap. The resilience, the renewal, and rediscovery that can come from embracing the season instead of fighting it. If you've been running on empty, this episode is your reminder that your needs and dreams still matter, and there's things that you can do about it. So stay tuned. Welcome to Fulfillment Therapy. I'm Kendra Nielsen, wife, mom, and licensed therapist. Do you ever feel like you're doing everything right, but you're still exhausted and empty? Did you think life, marriage, and parenting would be simpler and more rewarding? Sometimes you just want to crawl back into bed and lose yourself in screen time and chocolate, rather than face that personal or family stress. You are not alone. This podcast helps you break free of the rat race and build a richer, more meaningful life, flourishing incrementally and realistically, improving your mental health and wellness, and living with deeper purpose beyond the mundane, no matter where you are in life's journey. Is there anything else that you can do to slow that or improve your hormone health before that stage?
So a woman at the event where I spoke last night asked me that. She said, can't I just start taking this like at 35? Like, why don't I just start now? And the answer is you don't really need it now. So if you're 25 or 30 or 35 and you have regular periods, you are making enough estrogen and progesterone. Your ovaries are working, and supplementing, rubbing creams on that somebody sold you on the internet. First of all, we don't actually have studies, so I can't tell you it's actually going to make you live to be 100, but I also can't tell you it couldn't hurt you. So you don't want to be playing around with that. And yes, we begin to lose bone mass in our 30s, but it's slow, it's tiny. It gets accelerated at 50. So that's when I really want people to know that age 50 to 60 is when you can put the brakes on the development of heart disease and the development of atherosclerosis so that you're a healthier 70, 80, 90-year-old. I know that doesn't mean much to a lot of 20 or 30-year-olds, but I want them to know now so that if, let's say, you go through menopause early, you're not going to be dismissed by someone saying, oh, don't worry, you're fine. You look great. You're young. I want people to say, if I'm menopausal, now is the beginning of a magical 10-year window where I can do something. And there's not much to do before your perimenopause, right? When you're having regular periods, the best things you can do are the pillars of health: sleep, movement, nutrition, social connectivity, and I would argue sexually active, stay sexually active, be sexually active, be happy. So those pillars of health, those are for your whole life. So if you set them up well when you're young, instead of saying, I've got this really crazy job and I don't have time to eat, so I just inhale Cheetos at lunch and then I binge and don't eat till the next day. That's not healthy. That's not going to serve you long term. Oh, I have this really busy life. I travel a lot. I can't exercise. I don't have time. That's not healthy. You're not setting yourself up to be a healthy 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, or 80-year-old. It's making these choices and prioritizing sleep, nutrition, movement, social connectivity, and sex. All of them, all 5. And having them in your life regularly will serve you far better than any supplement you could take or any hormonal anything you could do. And I'm pretty big on hormones in the 50s to 60 range, but I don't feel like trying to aim for an A+ at 35 and taking all kinds of extra things is actually what's going to help you live well into your 70s, 80s, 90s. I think it's those health pillars, and obviously social connectivity and having good sense of who you are and having friendships and purpose. That's really big.
Definitely. And our listeners anywhere from 20s to 40s generally. So there's plenty in that perimenopause stage And so you're saying if some of them are feeling like, Maria, I can't really get a lot of extra sleep because of my schedule, but also even when you down, I just lay there, or I'm not overly enjoying sex, or some of those things that you said, you'd say that's a good indicator then it's important to schedule an appointment with a gynecologist, possibly primary care before that, and just to see where their hormones are at.
Yeah, to see if their story has a hormonal basis. If they're saying, I suddenly don't sleep, I don't function well at work, I'm depressed, my periods are all over the map, it's not that they need testing. It's that they might need some hormones to smooth things out and restore regular hormonal input to the brain. The birth control pill, believe it or not, we use it in perimenopause, as I call it the perimenopause smoother. Remember I told you about the up, down, roller coaster of perimenopause. Yeah. If I put you on a birth control pill, it's like giving you an even dose of smoothing out that crazy hilliness. It tends to restore regular periods, tends to help with mood, PMS, things like that. Not for everyone, it's not perfect. And the pill isn't perfect. It's synthetic estrogen and synthetic progesterone. I always prefer natural forms, which are what menopause hormone therapy is. But you know what? They do the trick in perimenopause. They work really well. And they're contraception. Because a lot of women feel like, oh, I'm 38, I'm 43, I'm not going to get pregnant. You can still get pregnant. And you don't want to get pregnant unless you want to. So to have contraception and to have something smoothing the period up and downs and the mood up and downs, that can be a really big thing.
It almost sounds like it's good to even check in with a partner because they might have a much better idea of
I love that
awareness of some of those patterns that are popping up out of the blue that maybe.
Well, and it can play out in the bedroom too. And this is part of the bedroom gap and why the bedroom gap is a nice book to read in your 20s and 30s and 40s, because you can understand that you have to get set up for good partner communication around life, work, stress, sleep, but also around sex. It's crazy that people who live together for 20 years, they talk about everything, their dogs and kids and their jobs, but they don't have regular sexual check-ins. And I think they should. The first one's the hardest because you're like, okay, this is going to sound like it's out of nowhere, but I always start with a compliment and tell people, I really loved when we made love last week and you gave me a back rub. It felt like 15 minutes. That relaxed me. That helped me get rid of the tension from my whole week. And it really made me appreciate intimate time with you. And it didn't feel like we were just going through the motions of sex. Stuff like that can be groundbreaking in a relationship. And I tell people do it on a walk or in a car so that you don't have to, if you're nervous about doing it, you can look ahead and approach it from a position of enjoyment and desire for even better, not pointing finger, not, I wish you did this more, but I loved when you did that one time. And I wish it was part of how we are regularly because it made me feel so great. So there's a lot of that in the bedroom gap of how to up your game sexually by better communication with your partner, and how that once you're having a better sex life, a more fulfilling sex life and regular sex, this releases endorphins, dopamine, oxytocin, all kinds of good neurochemicals that make you feel happier. Like sex should make you feel happy. Sex should be about joy, fulfillment, play. We don't play enough in this country. I think we're very tuned into being productive, right? We have a productivity culture, but I think the culture could use a little resetting on pleasure and play. And so that's one of the reasons I wrote this book is I felt that women were viewing sex as a chore, something they had to do for a partner, and they weren't fulfilled at all. They were just going through the motions. So I think it's okay to say, no, I think fulfillment is my due and pleasure is something I can have. For some reason, women feel guilty about that. That's why they call it guilty pleasures. What's your guilty pleasure? My guilty pleasure is eating black licorice, but why should I feel guilty about it? Like I eat really well all the time. If I want to have the black licorice, I don't think I should feel guilty about it. And I do feel like there's a little bit of a gender thing there. I don't hear men say guilty pleasures as often. Maybe I don't, because I talk to women all day. But what do you think about that? Do you feel like we could use like giving ourselves grace to be fulfilled and
Oh,
have pleasure?
absolutely. And examining that shame, that's the whole aspect of the mental health part of it. Like, where does that come from, that belief? And that could be honestly a whole nother episode, which I would love to do. Side note from that too, I actually don't really know if it's based in some sort of erroneous view or something, but is there a time that women do have more of a sexual peak that maybe we can look forward to, or is it this just when our hormones are more balanced and we go in and we get those taken care of?
That is such a great question. And I'm going to do the opposite of Debbie Doom and Gloom. It depends what peak you're talking about, but we might have more frequent sex in our 20s and 30s, whether it's because of hookup culture or in a collegiate setting where there's lots and lots of people around to have sex with, or we're just more active on dating apps. So the frequency of sex does decrease from our 20s to our 70s. That's not a big surprise, really. But the joy and pleasure from sex tends to improve as we age. I think that's because we get more comfortable with our own bodies. We don't have the body shame and even body dysmorphia that is more prevalent in younger men and women. You know, they look in the mirror and they're a size 4 and they're like, oh my God, there's fat right there. I see it. Or how am I going to post that on Instagram? And that's more likely to be a 23-year-old post than a 53 or a 73-year-old post who are wearing cover-ups and long sleeves and long pants and maybe feeling more liberating to have sex be for their pleasure and their enjoyment. Or maybe they're more comfortable asking for what they want. If I could wave a wand, I would love every 23-year-old woman to have a chat with a 53-year-old and a 73-year-old woman and say, I'm so not sure of how to have sex. I'm not sure what to sound like, look like, talk like, fake orgasms. I think a lot of that falls away as we age. We don't have time for it anymore. We're like, I'm 53. I may only have 40 years left. I want to enjoy myself. I have a story. I had an 84-year-old patient, been my patient for 20 years. I thought I knew her really well, but it turned out she was keeping a secret from me. She came in a few weeks ago and she said, Dr. Sophocles, I have to tell you something. She said, I've been married for 62 years. And I said, yeah, I know. You've told me. And she said, what I didn't tell you is I've never, ever experienced sexual pleasure. Not one time with my husband. He doesn't know how. He doesn't think that's part of it. And he doesn't get my hints. Zero pleasure. I've been a good wife. I did it for him for 62 years. And she said, and I want it before I die. I want to know what that feels like. And so we had a long, hour talk about knowing your anatomy. We went everywhere. I couldn't believe how game she was to learn all this. But I think that's what I'm getting at is that I think when we're younger, we think we're supposed to arrive at a sexual relationship already knowing how to do it somehow, magically. And usually that's from porn. And porn gives very male prevalent messages about the purpose of sex being male ejaculation and male pleasure. The top 2 names women are called in a porn setting are bitch and slut. So that can't be very good feeling, right? If you learn porn as a woman, you're not learning to look out for yourself. You're not learning about your own pleasure. And porn is so ubiquitous. So now we're seeing a lot more young people sexually dysfunctional because that's what they think sex is supposed to be, or even violent. So I think it's actually the older women who are, I may have not had great sex in my 20s and 30s, but now I'd like to go find that.
So many things here that we can learn about this. For me, I didn't know what I didn't know. What you mentioned, I wish these 23-year-olds could have a conversation with these 53-year-olds, these 83-year-olds, to explore those things. And I think that's what it took for me, is being surrounded by women in a safe setting to start to feel comfortable enough asking some of those questions and then be like, oh, similar questions and some other ideas, things that I never would have opened my mind up to for maybe decades had I not been in that setting. And so how healing and important that was. In my case, it came in the form of a book club, but that ended up being more like group therapy, right? And having something like that, whether that's with going in and seeing an OB doctor or somebody else where you can have those conversations. I love that you are able to speak to that and getting some of these things answered. We can read the bedroom gap. We can do these other things. That was another question I just briefly had for you. Where can people reach out to you if they want to know more?
So I am a licensed physician in 11 states. Wow. So there are 11 states where people can connect with me and be a virtual patient. I'll say some of them quickly in case people are listening. But New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Maryland, Florida, Texas, Utah, Colorado, California, states like that. And so that's nice if you want to be a patient. If you want to just reach out to me to connect, Instagram works. I'm at Maria Sophocles MD, and my website, mariasophoclesmd.com, has a lot of information. And so I encourage people to reach out. I always answer you. Give me a few days because I get a lot. The book, The Bedroom Gap, can be purchased on Amazon. It can be purchased from local booksellers. It can be purchased online, lots of different online things. And if you go on my website, there's a way to purchase it. It's out February 10th, but it's available in lots of countries and lots of languages. And I think it's really valuable for women to read and men to read. I have a lot of women who have said, I actually really want my partner to read this. I want them to understand that it's hard for me to say the things I have to say. And there's advice in there for how to have a conversation about sex with a partner if you have it, how to have sex after chronic illness, or how to have sex after an affair or after an assault. There's all kinds of women out there and men who are struggling with how to evolve sexually. I wrote it initially thinking women in menopause need a guide for how they change in menopause and perimenopause, but it turned out to be something that women of all ages and their partners, men or women, really benefit from. In fact, the publisher said, no, this is much more a book about psychology and who we are than just about menopause or perimenopause. And that actually made me really happy because I think it means more people can understand and grow from reading it. My TED Talk, if people Google TED Talk Maria Sophocles, I think that is a fun 14 minutes of understanding what happens to us and how those changes make us feel. So I think that's a good way. I'm sorry, long-winded.
No, I'm excited to read your book and check out your TED Talk. Know that I have that information too, and I will put it in the show notes. And then my last and final question for you is, what's something that you've done recently to deepen your own sense of fulfillment in your life, whether it's anything that we've talked about or something completely different?
Yeah, I am so lucky that I have a friend who hasn't been a great friend for many years. I've known her for 30 years. And I was really struggling a couple months ago with just a lot of different stressors in my life all coming at once. And I just reached out to her spontaneously and said, you're a source of stability and peace to me, and you always have been. And I need your advice. How do I pause on all this stress and find peace and happiness and joy and fulfillment? And she said, I want you to think about this for a week, something that when you think about it or mention it actually gives you goosebumps. And I thought to myself, oh God, that's silly. I'm an adult. I don't get goosebumps. That's like in the movies. But it turned out we do have these little micro moments of real joy if we pay attention to them. So for me, I spent a week thinking about, when do I get goosebumps? For me, I get goosebumps when I go on stage because I love to share this learning with audiences. So I get those goosebumps. Maybe it's just dopamine. I don't know. I also get it in nature. When I'm walking, I walk a lot outside. And when I take the time to notice something that to me is very beautiful, or just to marvel at it, like, wow, how do the clouds actually look like that? Or how do those birds know to find that incredible pattern? Like little kind of micro doses of joy from nature give me goosebumps. Some people probably get them from hearing a musical performer live or something, or kissing someone deeply on the mouth, or there's all kinds of wonderful ways we get goosebumps. My husband still gives me goosebumps when I kiss him sometimes. And that's great after 30 years. So I feel quite lucky to still get goosebumps from being held by him. So I think it's finding those little goosebump moments in your week. And because it's very hard to say, you can say, I'm really fulfilled in my life and I am so blessed to have a career that means so much to me and to feel I have purpose, or incredible children who humble me every day. They've given me goosebumps for the last 30 years, chronically, but also stress. I think it's finding the little goosebump moments throughout our week and noting them. Like, yes, how lucky am I had a goosebump moment. That's how I'd answer that.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. And I'd never thought of it in that way, but a very simple way to check, like, how can I increase that joy, that fulfillment, and just look for those moments. Beautiful place to wrap up. Thank you so much, Maria, for coming on the show with us today.
It's been my pleasure, Kendra. I really enjoyed speaking with you. Thank you.
What an inspiring way to wrap up our discussion with Dr. Sophocles. If you're ready to deepen your growth journey, sign up for our weekly inspiration and wellness tips at fulfillmenttherapy.org, or for individual coaching or an internship to take the next step toward a more energized and fulfilling life. And don't forget, we have those wellness courses as well as those courses to help you start your own online business and podcast. As always, stay connected with us on Instagram or Facebook at Fulfillment Therapy for ongoing encouragement and tools to support you and your family's well-being. We'll see you back here next Monday with new episodes. Until then. Hey friends, if you enjoyed this episode, a quick 30-second share can help someone else find support and help this podcast grow. Leaving a review on Apple Podcasts boosts visibility and keeps the show alive. Your simple acts make a big difference. I'll see you back here each week for more life-changing episodes.